A lot of individuals try to do this YouTube thing, right? A lot of individuals get in front of a camera, they try to sound knowledgeable while at the same time be entertaining. But when it comes down to it, they're usually just giving their opinion, right? And that's cute, but opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, and they're usually full of crap. And then there's a select few on this platform talking pro wrestling that actually know what they're talking about and are actually semi-entertaining. And then there's one, yours truly the amplified man, who's on a whole nother level. I set myself apart from the rest because I actually drop facts and truth. I take it to another level and I break down situations and topics. Break it down to the bare bone truth. What you decide to do with that truth, that's up to you and your choice. I can only hope that you go out there in the world and when you talk pro wrestling, you are more educated after a BC Amplified video than you were beforehand. But again, that's your choice. But one of the things I preach the most on this channel is how there is different types of fans in pro wrestling. Some people still like to think that every fan is the same and we're all cut from the same cloth, but it's not the case. There are different strokes for different folks. For instance, there are smart fans, smarks, and marks. But even with the distinction between the two, there are categories within those categories. For instance, smarks, smart fans, who know the ins and outs of the business, even behind the scenes. There's another group called the diehard fan. They know every single independent promotion. They know who's coming and going. They look at pro wrestling totally different than the other end of the spectrum. What is the other end of the spectrum? Well, if you leave the smarks, the smart fans, and the diehards, now you're on the other side of the planet. Now you have what's called the casual fans. Those are the marks. Now, even within the marks, you have several categories. You have the casuals that tune in every single television show, but they don't really know the ins and outs of the behind-the-scenes business. But then you also have the mainstream media fans. Those are the ones that may only catch pay-per-views, and some of them only catch the 4 major pay-per-views. And they like to talk and act like they know what they're saying, doing when it comes to pro wrestling, but they don't really. Because they only watch the pay-per-views, or the big pay-per-views. Or they only watch when a name that they know is going to be wrestling and they happen to be at a friend's house. Yeah, I'll stay for this match. I grew up watching John Cena. Or whatever the fuck they're saying. There's different types of fans. Smart fans, diehards, casuals, mainstream media. And you can even break it down even more from there, but I won't bore you. My point is this. When you are a billion-dollar conglomerate company like WWE, you have to pick and choose where you debut your superstars. And you have to choose wisely. There is no reason under the sun on this planet that the amplified man on this platform should be more knowledgeable, more in touch, and more in tune than the suits and ties that are within WWE, including the head, the lead suit and tie, Vince McMahon. I should not be dropping more knowledge and more truth than the company itself. I should not know what I am doing and saying more than the company itself that I'm talking about. However, I am. Time and time again, I am more knowledgeable than those within the company itself that I am talking about. That is sad, that is embarrassing, that is tragic, that is criminal. But it is true. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that when you have names that actually have value, that actually have worth attached to them, you put them in the right scenarios, in the right situations. When you are about to call up somebody like Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, Aleister Black, Ricochet, individually, forget all of them at once, but when you are about to call up one of them, That is a big deal. And you guys know, I don't like necessarily the flips and the divers, the non-sellers, the smaller guys. I don't go out of my way to praise them. They have to earn my respect. They have to earn my standing ovation. They have to earn me flipping out at their every move and expression and mannerism. They have to captivate me. I'm not just going to anoint them as something epic just because the diehards have. But these individuals that I just named, they have earned my respect for what they did in NXT and around the globe beforehand. So you bet your ass when you bring up Gargano, Ciampa, Black, Ricochet, you better be putting them in the best situation possible and you let them flourish. Let them have a chance. What WWE, and I can't make this up, what WWE did last night on Monday Night Raw is they impromptu, that's right, impromptu fashion, not announced beforehand. I think they sent out emails maybe a couple hours before telling you that these individuals were in the building, but nobody had a clue what was going on. So in impromptu fashion, they announced, top of the show, Ricochet, Aleister Black, Johnny Gargano, and Tommaso Ciampa were all going to be competing on that night's Monday Night Raw. Triple H just came out in the middle of the ring and just announced it. And they did this in Lafayette, Louisiana. Lafayette, Louisiana. Of all places, that is the crowd you chose to bring up Gargano, Ciampa, Black, and Ricochet all at once. That seems to me like self-sabotage. This was like Vince McMahon saying, yeah, this is what the world is talking about. This is what people think is going to be the next big thing. I'm going to show them. I'll bury them in a week. Send them all out. I'm not saying that happened. I do not want to believe that is what happened. To sabotage your own superstars, sabotage your own company. But that's what it's like to somebody like me, a smart fan like me that knows the ins and outs of the business. How can you not look at this as self-sabotage? Because even if you're consciously doing it or subconsciously doing it, it's being done. You are sabotaging these individuals. A reaction is contagious. When we see the crowd going ballistic, it affects the crowd at home. It just does. I'm not saying the reaction is always justified, right? Most of these crowds are filled with marks. So the smart fan might not always agree with what the marks are actually cheering. But it's still contagious. It at least creates an electric atmosphere. This crowd in Louisiana didn't even seem like they knew who they were, or even worse, they knew and they just didn't care. Either one is tragic. And WWE knows that they didn't know because who they were, because when Triple H announced each participant, each NXT major superstar call-up, sort of, I'll get to that in a minute, when he announced them, Michael Cole had to go over a video package of every superstar so everybody knows who they are. When you have to explain, this is business 101. I'm going to let you guys in on business 101. When you have to explain your product to people, they are 60% plus at that point ready to walk away. These are true statistics. They have been conducted in stores, pop-up facilities, when they pop up markets here on Fifth Avenue or on Broadway. When you have to explain your product, your customer, your consumer will listen for a few seconds and the confusion will set in. They don't even want to deal with it. They will walk away. When you have to explain your product, your customer is 60% and in most cases plus over 60% ready to walk away. And they will. Because they don't want to be explained shit. You debut these guys as if that crowd should know who they are. Because then afterwards, they will go home, they will Google, they will YouTube, they will search out those stars. Because they will see that WWE made a big deal about them. They will see that the other crowd members, they were fucking excited. But when you have to explain it to them, then obviously you're doing something wrong. You are presenting them, debuting them in front of a crowd that should not be the ones for the debut. They should not be the crowd to get these type of stars debuting. It's just the truth. I don't have a problem with that Louisiana crowd up front, but I have a problem with their lack of wrestling knowledge. I'm not knocking them. That's just a crowd that showed up to watch the superstars they wanted to see. That's fine. You're regular marks, regular casuals, maybe even some mainstream media fans that got a hold of some tickets. That's fine. But that's my point. I know the crowds. I know what town is going to attract what crowd. Why does WWE not know? Why does Vince not know what crowd is which? Or do they just not care? I honestly believe it's a mixture of both nowadays, and that's tragic and criminal and downright sad and embarrassing. These superstars debuted last night with their little video packages, and Triple H and Michael Cole tried to tell you exactly who they were, but at the end of the day, if any of that Lafayette, Louisiana crowd wasn't sleeping, if they were still awake, they did not care for any of the garbage or what they perceived was garbage that aired last night on Monday Night Raw. Because it was a snooze fest for them. That was the best you had for Aleister Black, Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, and Ricochet? That's the best? You debut them all in one bang? Separate matches? No thrill or suspense going into any of it? In front of a crowd that either didn't know who they were or just didn't care. You had Atlanta next week. You couldn't hold off to a place like Atlanta? You couldn't wait to do the perfect debut like New York City? Chicago? Come on, man! That's the best you got? The sad truth is that is the best they got, and it is downright pathetic. Yeah, I'll go over Monday Night Raw right now. But I just had to go over one huge problem that I had from last night. I'm not blaming the crowd like a lot of other dipshits in this community. No. I am placing the blame solely on Vince McMahon, Triple H, in the suit. That's right, Triple H, he doesn't get a pass. BC, it's the old man who's making the final call. I don't give a shit. You know damn well Triple H has pull over his people. That is his brand. He's not just gonna flaunt them out there at the drop of a hat just because McMahon said so. He's gonna fight for what he believes in, or he should anyway. Triple H needs to know what that crowd is gonna be. If he's gonna throw that type of mega punch, a knockout punch like Black, Ricochet, Gargano, and Ciampa. They went for a knockout punch in the middle of Louisiana in front of a crowd that doesn't know who the hell these guys are. And you're telling me Triple H isn't going to be blamed for that? No. I put it on Vince, Triple H, and every suit and tie within that company. Not the crowd, because they need to know what crowd they are performing in front of. And if you don't know, then you're no better than R-Truth calling Milwaukee Green Bay. I don't know what's worse. Truth not knowing what town he was actually in, or WWE not knowing what crowd you're performing in front of. I think the latter is worse. Yeah, I'll get to the review right now. Like that's gonna be any less amplified than I am right now. But I'm gonna down the last bit of my third latte right now. I got about a quarter left. I'm gonna down that shit, and we're gonna get right into the Raw review. Alright, so I'm going to try to get you guys out of here as fast as possible so you can go about your Tuesday, get us all a SmackDown, and try to rectify the wrongs from last night. So we'll try to go over this fast, guys. I can't make this up. If I'm going from the top, Triple H literally was in the ring calling out all of the superstars from NXT that'll be debuting later in the night. Video packages, the air was sucked out of the room from the beginning, because again, the crowd doesn't know who they are or just doesn't care. And in return, this is the lamest way you could have debuted 4 guys, as I aforementioned. I'm not going to keep naming their names, but you debut 4 of the top superstars along with Velveteen Dream, who was not called up yet. But those are the top superstars down in NXT, and this was the best they had? Again, far from it. Or again, maybe it was their best, which is even more pathetic. But this is how they chose to debut them. So even if that crowd knew who they were, I still feel the life would have been sucked out of the announcement. Because there was an announcement. Wow, you give me talents like that and you say, BC, your job is to find creative ways to debut each one of these individuals. Oh, I'm about to have fun at that point. No, WWE, they don't know what the heck they're doing from moment to moment. They're second to second. What? We have stars like this showing up? Let's announce them all at the beginning and give them weird matches throughout the night. I love those debuting options. Let's do it. Creative shit, Jimmy. Thanks, Vince. It's almost like they knew they screwed up, so they had to bring them up, right? The first announced batch after the we're gonna create change announcement was Lacey Evans like a lady. Then you had Lars Sullivan, who he's on the milk side of a milk carton because nobody has seen him since they announced he was coming. Heavy Machinery, Bushwhackers Negative 2.0. Who else? EC3, he's already 50-50 booked to the point where he's not even used last night. And he's only been around for a month. I've already seen this guy lose a couple times, squeak out a victory. Now he's not even seen. That was the first batch. They knew they screwed up. So now they bring up the real heavy hitters. They made sure they screwed that up as well, though, right from the beginning. Anyway, we'll move on. So they're announced for weird matches later in the night. I'll go over those real quick in a couple minutes. But we started off match-wise right after Triple H's announcement with Baron Corbin versus Braun Strowman. Another regurgitated, redundant, nonsensical bullshit match that we've seen 1,016 times in 2018. And already, in the early 2 months of 2019, we've already seen it 6 times. So let's do it again, because we're in the era of change. So of course we're gonna redo 2018 some more. The only thing missing is we'll most likely get a Finn Balor versus Bobby Lashley match later on in the night in some way. Yeah, that ended up happening. I'll get to that in a few minutes as well. I don't know if there's a moment that I won't be getting amplified because there's so much BS to go over. So I watched these two. Tables match, right? They have to throw gimmicks on them now because they know we've already seen this match a million different ways. Like a no disqualification match at Elimination Chamber meant anything to anybody. Of course it did not. So like a tables match is gonna care for anyone. Anyone, even in that crowd, to give 2 shits about that match. It wasn't gonna happen, and it didn't happen. The best part of that match is when it was over. Braun Strowman spears or power slams Baron Corbin into a table that was set up in the corner, and that was the 20 minutes, 25 minutes, whatever it was, of extreme bullshit that we had to endure, that we had to go through. Next week, buckle up, hold on tight to something, because we're gonna have Baron Corbin and Braun Strowman again. And this is gonna lead to an ultimate match at Fastlane. And then 4 more weeks of Baron Corbin and Braun Strowman on Raw, and that'll culminate in a loser gets thrown off the Empire State Building match. Braun versus Baron at Mania. The first hour wasn't even done yet. If you didn't have a headache by now, hold your horses, because here comes Paul Heyman. Braun Strowman, you would think he's going to take Paul Heyman and power slam him through the ramp. No, he puts his hand on his throat, he chokes him for like 2 seconds, and then he just lets him go. Wow, what a real monster. Paul Heyman is lucky that Braun Strowman had to go get his juice box from his lunchbox. Nicholas was texting him, Braun, come on, man. My mom says I have to go to bed soon. So he asks Paul Heyman, you think he's gonna do something, and he's like, oh, whatever. I gotta get my lunchbox. My juice is getting warm. So Braun goes to get his lunchbox, and Paul Heyman is choking at that. Get me water. And then we go to commercial break. That is the entertainment that we're getting. We come back from commercial break, and Paul Heyman is going on his spewing nonsense about what Brock Lesnar is going to do to Seth Rollins. Blah, blah, mixed with a little more of blah and blah. And when it was all said and done, we got nothing but blah. The best thing they could have done for Brock and Paul is shut Paul up for a minute, and I love Paul Heyman, and he's one of the best promo guys, but when you hear the same promo time and time again, every week, give it a rest, man. So they just cut to a video package of Paul Heyman talking some more. But at least it's in a different format. He's telling a Brock Lesnar story about how Brock grew up on a farm, and he didn't have things handed to him, and he worked for everything he had with his bare hands. And everywhere he went, he conquered that platform. I actually like the story. They told it in 2 different parts, and when the story concluded, they were talking about how Seth Rollins is one of those dogs that is not going to go quietly into the night. He's not going to accept his fate. So Paul Heyman said Brock Lesnar is going to have to tap into that young boy who grew up on that farm, who even when that dog didn't want to be put out the pasture, Brock is going to have to put that dog out, whether he likes it or not. So I actually like the story. If you're not going to have Brock, and I don't want Paul Heyman just spewing for another 17 minutes promo of the same promo every week, then give me the story. Why not? It was probably one of the best things in Raw, and that's not saying much. That was your whole entire first hour. That was it. I don't even know. I'm not going to go in chronological order, maybe. And maybe I am. I have no fucking idea. But I'll go over the rest of Raw. Before I go over the actual... You know what? Fuck it. Why don't I just go over the call-ups now? And we don't even know if they're full-fledged call-ups. A couple of these guys are champions. Gargano has a strap. Tommaso has a strap. So clearly they're not just called up. You're going to see them competing all over. And then what the hell is the... Why is there a brand split? NXT guys just showing up to Raw. Raw will show up to NXT. Then SmackDown might as well. We've already seen Charlotte Flair appear out of nowhere on Raw. Charlotte Flair wasn't even a champion. She just showed up on Raw. NXT champions are showing up on Raw. There's no brand split anymore, so just end it. Otherwise, you're confusing the fuck out of your casuals and mainstream media fans for sure, because you're confusing your diehards and your smarks. They put him in some weird matches, guys. Elias took on Aleister Black. This has pay-per-view all over it. It's just WWE doesn't even realize what they have sitting in their lap. We have to build a story? Well, I don't want to do that. Let's just throw Aleister in there with Elias. Elias has been booked less than 50-50 lately. This guy has what it takes to be a bona fide larger-than-life superstar in this business, and they treat him like a joke and a clown in a sideshow. So last night, he goes to sing a song, and he says, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm sick of how I'm being utilized. I loved it. I really did. I'm like, hey, is this a different outlook on Elias's future? Are they finally going to give this guy a push? And then they throw out Aleister Black, And in 10 minutes, Aleister Black is knocking Elias's head square off of his shoulders. Vicious black mass. So, you say, yeah, they can't have the NXT guy lose. But if that's the case, you can't have someone like Elias lose either to an NXT call-up. So my input on this, my conclusion, if you can't have either guy lose, don't put them in the same match together. That match is money anyway. that money can be made on that match at a pay-per-view. How's that? Because that money match should be up on a platform. Even if it ain't a WrestleMania, a SummerSlam, you could put that as a main match at a Backlash. At a fucking Great American Bash. A Halloween Havoc. Hell in a Cell. I don't give a shit what the pay-per-view is called. That is a money match. They just give it away at a time where Elias needs victories now more than ever. And for what? For what? What did that do for Aleister Black? Nothing! Revival took on Gargano and Ciampa. The old DIY, right? Like they're trying to recreate NXT TakeOver. Years ago, they put on an amazing 2 out of 3 fall match. One of the match of the years for yours truly. But what were they trying to accomplish? The Revival just won the tag straps. So just like Elias and Aleister, you can't have either ones lose. Gargano and Ciampa, you're showing them to the world. They can't lose. Revival are your champions for 6 days now. They definitely can't lose. They're your main roster champions. So what do? Just like Elias, Revival just loses in the middle of the ring, 1, 2, 3. Can't make that shit up. Those are your tag team champions, everybody. That's the Revival. Get out your golf clap. Again, this is a money match for the future, possibly, if you do it correctly. Why would you just give that away in an impromptu form and fashion in front of a crowd that either doesn't know who they are or doesn't care? Why would you? What the fuck? The day after an Elimination Chamber is when you're going for a knockout punch and all of these NXT superstars are beating all of the main roster guys? You're telling me that doesn't feel a little forced, a little too extreme? And then they have Ricochet debut in a match that was already Finn Balor versus Lio Rush, I believe. If that's not getting your ass off the seat, I don't know what is. Balor, smiley pop collar Finn versus Lio. Lashley, I think, gets involved. I think Ricochet came down to help out or something, and it turned into a tag team match. Now, crazily speaking here, I actually enjoyed this match much more than I thought I would, and it's mainly for Ricochet. That's how much he does captivate yours truly. Ricochet, I'm hanging on this guy's every move because I don't know what he's going to do next. He's not your normal flippin' diver. This guy takes it to a whole nother level. Like the Amplified Man takes it to another level on YouTube, Ricochet takes it to a whole nother level pro wrestling-wise. This guy's captivating as hell. So it could have been a piñata match with the Lucha Underground Summer House Party, and I still would have been probably captivated. But again, that was solely on Ricochet. When it was all said and done, Ricochet and Finn Balor defeat Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush. So again, what was it? Bobby Lashley continues to look like a fucking clown. What are you doing with Lashley? Utilize him correctly or get rid of him if you don't think he's going to capture anyone's attention. Ricochet and Finn Balor celebrate in the middle of the ring. So every single NXT superstar went out there with an impromptu match, and every superstar won their match. That's great. I'm not saying that's not what should have happened. But everyone they beat should not be losing right now. They all need victories now more than ever. That is the problem. That is what I call 50-50 booking, guys. You hear me preach it all the time. As much as I preach how there's different types of fans, I'm always preaching 50-50 booking. And if you didn't catch my podcast a few weeks ago, I went over exactly what 50-50 booking is, and I showed examples like Seth Rollins, who literally is 50-50 booked. In fact, he loses more of his matches than he wins. That is a true statistic. And if you want another example of 50-50 booking, Braun Strowman, Baron Corbin. I already went over that match, or lack thereof, but you have a guy who won at the Chamber the night before. Baron Corbin wins the match. They even went all out. They brought out McIntyre, Lashley. They put him through two tables, from stairs. They went all out to have Baron Corbin look strong, dominant, and the victor. 24 hours later, Braun's winning by putting Baron Corbin through a table. What the fuck was the Elimination Chamber for then? 50-50 booking ruins superstars and ruins common sense. And when common sense and logic is ruined in your product, you lose credibility. And when you lose credibility, your ratings are going to be what they are. The unfilled seats at the arenas are going to remain unfilled. That's the truth. Cannot stand 50-50 booking, man. That was the NXT call-ups. We don't know how often we're going to see them. We don't know how they're going to be utilized. Or I take that back. Yes, we do, probably tragically. And that was supposed to send the jolt through Monday Night Raw. We'll see what it did in the ratings, man. Is there enough smarks and diehards back at home that heard the announcement and said, hey, we're tuning into the whole show, we need to see it? Or is there a lot more of those casuals and mainstream media fans, like those in attendance, that said, who? What? I'm changing this. We'll see. I'm interested to find out. I just know this could have been done so much better, and I would not have had them all in one night. That shows you, though, what they think about these superstars, what Vince McMahon thinks about them, and it shows you that Triple H either doesn't have a backbone to stand up to McMahon, or he truly doesn't have that logic and common sense when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of what needs to be done. What else happened on Monday Night Raw? Let's go down it real quick, because there ain't a lot. Lucha Summer Underground House Party, the Pinata Party, they defeated Zack Ryder and Curt Hawkins via pinfall, so you have Curt Hawkins' losing streak continue. The only difference now is Zack Ryder is also on the losing streak with Curt Hawkins. Wow! What is this going to lead to? One day they finally get a victory, we all give them a huge pop, wow! And then what? We have to now give a shit about Zack Ryder and Curt Hawkins for a 3-month title reign? We saw how that worked with the B team and many others. It's a fun little moment at first, a few weeks of, wow, I kind of like this. Even me, I was on board with the B team until I realized, oh shit, they don't know what the hell they're doing with the B team. They don't know where they're going. So even when something starts out cool, they end up ruining it. But Zack Ryder and Curt Hawkins is supposed to captivate me in the tag team world? Come on, man. We all see what the ultimate payoff is here. They're eventually going to win a match. Wow! Get out your golf claps. Lacey Evans, a southern lady, a southern belle. She came down out of nowhere at Elimination Chamber to show you she's a lady, and then she turned around and walked right back up that ramp. You don't get Lacey. And then she did it again on Raw. She comes down when Heavy Machinery are giving some words of wisdom to Charlie Caruso. And she came down, she flaunted her little ass skittles, and then she turned back and went right back up that ramp. And then here's Heavy Machinery trying to do a Lacey Evans and it turns into the Bushwhackers. The crowd, if they weren't more dead before, they're over the top dead at that point. It looked like they all were given sleeping pills on the way into the arena. And I don't blame them for that segment. When they went to commercial, I didn't know what that 5 minutes was for. If you're gonna give Heavy Machinery a promo, have them giving out words that we care about. Have them say something of importance. All they said was, my brother's got my back and I got his. That's right, brother. We're here to make an impact, and it's gonna be impactful. Impact indeed. Or whatever they were spewing. Lacey Evans probably saved that segment. The only problem is nothing saved us from Lacey Evans. I don't even know what that was about, but that was cringeworthy and embarrassing as fuck. That's one of those moments where if somebody walks into the room that doesn't watch pro wrestling while you're watching this product, and you have to explain to them what you're watching. What else even happened, man? Bayley and Sasha, they went out and thanked the WWE Universe, right? And they said, we're gonna be tag team champs for a long time. And BC Amplified just kind of was like, yeah. Because you guys know I'm a huge Sasha Banks fan. I call myself a Sasha Banks advocate. Always praising her. But I feel she should be on her own and taking out the women's division one by one. I feel so many other ladies are in that spot right now, and Sasha's in a tag team. That's great. They made history. They became the first ever tag champs. That's awesome. But how long are we talking about with the Sasha and Bayley tag team? I hate the name Boss and Hug Connection. I hate the fact that Sasha Banks' music plays for 4 seconds before Bayley's plays all the way down to the ring. I hate a lot about this tag team. But I'm going to ride it out because I love Sasha Banks. But I am going to be completely fine when they drop those titles and go their separate ways. I will be fine. I'm just letting you know. But they thanked everybody. And then more nonsense. More nonsensical BS. Tamina and Nia come down. They start playing off what Corey Graves is always saying about Sasha always being in it for herself. Always being selfish and this and that. And even if that ends up to be true, she ends up turning on Bayley in the future and she becomes the bad gal, which I fully would be committed to. That's what should be happening. You don't need to plant those seeds because nobody's really going to care about that. When the time comes, she could just do the deed. I'm sick of hearing about her being selfish and all in it for herself. It's bullshit. And it doesn't make sense because on air, we don't see that. We never have. Even in NXT, man, she was just playing that character, but it was never more than anyone else. Everybody's in it for themselves. And then they say, Tamina gets on the mic, which should never happen, and she's like, your luck ends tonight, right now. And she drops the mic, and I don't know if this is an impromptu match, or they're going to go in there and try to beat the shit out of Bayley and Sasha. All that happens is Sasha and Bayley kick them a few times, and they ran away. So what was it all about? Is that just planting the seed that Tamina and Nia are going to be the first challengers for Bayley and Sasha? But when you think about it, I've already seen that match a million times on Raw. This is what I mean about these tag titles. And everybody goes, CBC Sasha, this is the big plan for them. And I said, is it really a big plan? The moment's going to be great when they capture history, but then what? Then we're going to get weeks of Tamina and Nia versus Sasha and Bayley, then weeks of the Riot Squad versus Sasha and Bayley. These are all 2018 matches, and every once in a while, maybe they'll go down to NXT. Or if we're lucky, they'll go to SmackDown and start a feud over there for a little while. But it looks like at first, it's Nia and Tamina. Knowing WWE, they don't know how to book shit anyway. They'll probably put a tag team from every brand, and they'll do a fatal 4-way at Fastlane. Or WrestleMania. Don't get me wrong, I hate fatal 4-ways and triple threats when there's a title on the line. But maybe that'll be a welcoming sight if the only other option is Tamina and Nia or the Riot Squad versus Sasha and Bayley. Anyway, it's a whole nother fucking story. I'm done with that. Drew McIntyre defeated Dean Ambrose in less than 5 minutes. I don't know. Why did you have Dean Ambrose beat EC3 the week before then? He loses to EC3 2 weeks ago. Last week he beats EC3. This week EC3 isn't even competing. And Drew McIntyre is making light work of Dean. You talk about 50-50 booking. Dean loses EC3. He wins the next week. He loses the next week to Drew. Then next week what? He's beating Drew? I love the part backstage where Dean Ambrose says, I have nothing planned tonight. You're talking about Seth Rollins because Drew McIntyre went up to Triple H, and Drew's telling Triple H to take Lesnar out of the match or Seth out of the match at WrestleMania or some shit and give him to me. So Dean Ambrose is like, don't worry about Seth. I've got nothing to do tonight. You let me have him. Or maybe he just wanted Seth Rollins that night. Drew McIntyre. I don't even care. The point is, you had Dean Ambrose smack Drew McIntyre across the face. And that was a little bit of intrigue. I'm like, okay, I'm down for a Drew versus Dean impromptu match if there's going to be some ferociousness. But no, we got 4.5 minutes of an ass kicking by Drew McIntyre. Again, great for Drew McIntyre. He needs wins now more than anyone as well, which is basically, I could say that about the whole roster. Dean Ambrose really needs some victories. Backstage, Dean Ambrose goes up to Seth Rollins during a promo, and that Rollins was cutting backstage with Caruso. And Dean Ambrose goes, dude, where were you? I could have used you out there. And Seth Rollins goes, have you absolutely lost your mind? And Dean Ambrose looks at him all like fucking Looney Tuned. Like, where the hell am I? And then he's like, nah. And then he walks away. So I love that crazy lunatic character he's playing now. Seth Rollins is like, dude, you attacked me, you trashed Roman, you went off on your own, and now all of a sudden you're acting like we're brothers again. And Dean's like, what, that wasn't behind us? So I did think that was funny. One of the few bright spots I can find in this program. Guys, that was it. That was it. Everything else was just nonsensical bullshit like the rest of the show. Be happy I even went over all of that. The main event was Ruby Riott versus Ronda Rousey. This is what the people were complaining about, right? They wanted to see Ruby last a little bit longer with Ronda at Elimination Chamber. I felt it was fine because we got to look at the bigger picture, which is WrestleMania. We need Ronda Rousey to be built up as a badass that she should be built up as. She can't be having 15-minute matches with every female on the roster. She can't. That's not believable. It's Ronda, man. She could take your arm and snap it in real life. We gotta have some of that. I like Ruby, but she's a casualty of war right now. If you want to build up Ruby and the Riot Squad, there's many ways to do it. You don't do it at Ronda's expense. So I was fine with the Elimination Chamber, but I was also fine with that match last night because I felt it was good. Ronda was on her A game for the most part. There was a time where she was up on the top rope about to jump to the outside on top of all of the Riot Squad, where it looks like she slipped her footing a little bit or doubted herself, and she looked like a cat about to be on her 9th life falling from the Empire. Luckily, she was able to land on them and everybody was okay. But for the most part, Ronda Rousey was on it last night. You could tell she was actually pissed. She has a chip on her shoulder now that I didn't see before. I think she knows the fans kind of turned on her, and now there is a little bit of a fuck you there, and I like that. Ruby, we know she could go in the ring, so that was cool to see her in there as well. And in the end, it was the right decision, man. Ronda has to win this. She's going to WrestleMania and most likely being in the main event. You gotta build her up. Afterwards, Ronda Rousey took care of Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan as well, and Raw kind of went off the air, kind of awkwardly. It was just with Ronda Rousey's victory. So all of that 3-hour program ended just kind of like that. I don't even know if we faded to black. We just kind of ended. And that goes with the entire Monday Night Raw program last night. It was kind of awkward. That's the best way to put it. It was dumb as fuck, for the most part, but we'll leave it at awkward. I don't know what SmackDown brings tonight. Do we see those same NXT superstars wrestle again tonight or show up? Do we see a different set? Does the Velveteen Dream, Shayna Baszler, do they show up tonight? Io Shirai, Kairi Sane. Maybe some other NXT talent shows up tonight. I would think so. If you're going to have them show up on Raw, let's have another set show up on SmackDown. Why not? Right? At this point, that's how they're going to do business. They're not going to give everybody an individual story. They're not going to build up their characters in an individualistic nature. It looks like they're just throwing everyone out there. I'm against it. But if you're going to do it for Raw, what makes you think SmackDown wouldn't do it tonight? Man, again, if you gave me that, if SmackDown came to me and said, hey, we got Velveteen Dream tonight, Shayna Baszler and Kairi Sane. Can you give us a creative way to debut them? I'm saying you're damn right I can. If you need all 3 or 4, you can throw in Io Shirai. If you need all 4 of them to debut in one night, if you need to have that happen, let the Amplified Man do it. I will make this fun. But no, they'll just give them impromptu matches. We'll see what they got in store, guys. I'll see you tomorrow for the SmackDown review and reaction. For now, double fist those Starbucks coffees, whether you're getting frappuccinos, black coffees, straight up, no sugar, no cream, lattes, cappuccinos, macchiatos, whatever you're getting. Double fist it, down them, and whoop that ass. Holla at your boy, the Amplified Man. Peace, because he's out. For now, check you.